Namaste friends, welcome back to part 2 Bralette CAL hosted by Magic Needles India Limited. I hope you would have finished the two cups, which is the most required element for the bralette. So when you finished it, it will look like this. So both will be of same size. When you place one over the other, they will be same. So we'll begin the next part. We'll need to do the base part of the cup. So for that we are doing the medium size, so I have considered the hip size, the base size to be 34 inches around, and that can be customized to whatever be the hip size. And the pattern that I have chosen requires a multiple of 8 stitches, so I have divided the multiples of 8 stitches into back and front parts. So for the back I have 40, 64, 40. So first I'll take 40 chains, join with the base of the bra cup, make 32 SCs here, then one NC in between these two to join the 33rd one, and then 31 SCs here, and then 40 chains again. So having completed that, we will be placing one DC on each of the chains and each of the SCs all around, and then join it. That will become our foundation DC unit to continue with the pattern. This is the right side of the bralette. You can see those stitches here, and this is the wrong side of the bralette. You can see the back side of the DCs that we have placed in the last round. So to join that, we need to place back side facing the other way, both the back sides facing us, and we'll make chain 40. We'll make chain 40 and join at this point. I'll get back to you when I come to this particular point. Friends, I have made 40 chains, and I'm going to place my 41st stitch onto the bralette cup, the back side facing me, and I will place my first SC here. This is 1, 2, 3. Likewise, you will place 32 SCs. I'll finish 32 SCs and get back to you there at this particular point. Friends, I have done 32 SCs onto this first bra cup. Having placed that, I'm going to make one chain here that is going to join to the other bra cup. So make a chain, and then again the right side facing the other way, placing the bra cup like this. Place your first SC onto the next bra cup, you are going to make 31 SCs on this, so that makes us 64 SCs. You just have to place 31 evenly spaced SCs onto this lower base of the bra cup. So when you finish that, I will finish that and get back to you, and you to finish along with me. Friends, I have placed 31 SCs here, 31, 32 and 32 SCs here, so it makes 64 for the pattern. So there will be 8 repeats, 4 repeats here and 4 repeats here. and then we have to make 40 more chains. Each 40 chains will have 5 repeat of patterns. So let me complete the 40 chains and get back to you. So I'll be completing 40 chains on the other side. On this side I'll be completing 40 chains and then I'll get back to you. I have made 40 chains on the other side. Now we are going to work on the back bump. So each chain will have 3 loops. Just turn it around, you find the back bump, and on the very first back bump I am going to place a DC. If you are not comfortable in placing the DC, you can hold this chain 3, which will count as first DC, and then this is the 40th DC, and in the next one you make a DC. So I prefer to do the DC, so I will not do the chain 3. I have made my first DC. I have placed my first DC on the 40th chain and yarn over. I am going to place my second DC here on the next back bump. So here after doing this, the first DC top will likely to hide, so you place your stitch marker here. This is your first DC head. So place your stitch marker here and then proceed to work. So place one DC on every stitch, on to the back bump of every stitch. So you should have 40 DCs when you reach this point. When you reach this point you should have 40 DCs. So I will do 40 DCs and meet you at this particular point. I have placed 40 DCs from this end up to here, and now I'm going to work on to the SCs. One DC on each of the SCs that I have made onto both the bra cups. So let's begin. Yarn over, and while doing I will hide this yarn also along. I will take it along with my stitches and hide it. We are working on the right side, and here afterwards we'll be working in rounds. 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. We will be working one DC onto each of the SCs that we have placed, and one without fail one DC onto this chain, then one DC onto each of the SCs we have placed on the base of the bra cup, and then we'll place 40 DCs on this side, one DC on each of the back bumps of the chains that we have made. So I will meet you at this particular point. I have placed my last DC on the last stitch here, so I have 144 DCs. Now at this point I am going to join in a round to the very first DC that I have made. I'll show you how I'm going to place it. So this is the very first DC. We'll place a marker there. At this particular point we're going to join with the last DC. So place it like this. Yeah. So remove the stitch marker. join with a slip stitch. And you're joining on the right side only, and you'll be working on the right side here afterwards. Having joined, secure it with a chain, and then don't bother about this. This we will fasten off together later, or we'll tie it up together later. And in this very first stitch, that is the last DC that we made, you make a single crochet. So this is your first single crochet here, and place a stitch marker here. Now place your bralette like this and place a stitch marker in the centermost DC, this one, and from here skip 7 DCs, 3, 6, 7, and place a stitch marker on the 8th DC. So on every 8th DC you're going to have a single crochet. So that is why we are placing the markers here, just to cross check that all our counts are fine. Otherwise we need to adjust 1 or 2 stitches. Maybe we have missed out certain DC or certain number we have gone wrong. That can be adjusted now by adding or subtracting the DCs at the last end, tail end. 3, 6, 7, 8. So on every 8th one you place a stitch marker. 3, 6, 7, the 8th one. So I'll meet you after placing all the stitch markers. I hope you also place your stitch markers and be ready with them for the pattern. I have placed the stitch markers with the 7 DCs in between each stitch marker. So every 8th DC I have placed a stitch marker starting from here. This is my first stitch marker, this is my first stitch here, and then I have skipped 7. On the 8th I have placed a stitch marker, skipped 7, stitch marker on the 8th, 7, stitch marker on the 8th, skip 7, stitch marker on the 8th. So here in this part we are going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 repeats this side, 1, 2, 3, 4 repeats here, and then you can see at the back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So 5 repeats. So 10 repeats at the back and 8 repeats in the front. That makes total 18 repeats. This will be the most suitable for this particular pattern. So we have got ready with the base for the pattern. So next week, next part, we will see how to go about working the pattern. So see you all guys in the next part. Hope you enjoyed this part. Thank you. Have a nice day.